Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our first wellness seminar, Nutrition Myths. Let's find out what's healthy with nutritionist Amy Krasner. We are so excited to kick off this program with you guys and to offer this unique wellness offering through Aya Healthcare. Please do bear with us, and thank you for being a part of it. We have been practicing a lot. This is our very first presentation, so please do feel free to share feedback or ask questions in the chat box. And if you're on a mobile device looking for the chat, it is on the screen. Look for the little person icon toward the top of the screen, and then you'll have the option of who to send the chat to. So please do choose to send that to the presenter if you have any feedback for us. And you will see a disclaimer a little later in the presentation, but please do refrain from asking any personal health questions. These are really just tips from Amy on how to stay healthy and have optimal nutrition while you are out there caring for your patients and keeping them healthy. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Aya's nutrition expert, Amy Krasner of Balanced Nutrition, who will be walking us through this Nutrition Myths presentation today. Thank you, Amy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. I'd love to test the chat box. So if you can find your chat box and let me know where you are calling in from, make sure that you're sending the chat to just to the presenter. So select presenter and go ahead and let me know where you're calling in from. I'd love to know where you are. All right, we got from Concord, California. Thank you so much. Let's see. We got someone from Colorado, from Oregon, San Diego. Okay. A lot of West Coast over here. Anyone else? Make sure that your chat box works and that you can hear me okay. Okay, a few more people checking in. We got Jacksonville, Florida. Excellent, wonderful. So now you guys know how to use the chat box, and there'll be a few opportunities for you to chime in, to have a few Q&As that we have throughout the presentation, and please don't hesitate if you have any comments or questions. Please go ahead and use the chat box to communicate. All right, so let's dive in. Today our topic is all about nutrition myths, and the reason why we are starting with this topic is because there's so much confusion about nutrition nowadays. There's a lot of information on the internet. A lot of people, coworkers and friends might say what they think is healthy or what works for them. But then it becomes all confusing trying to figure out how to actually implement that and what is true, what is not true. So we're going to bust through some myths today. We're going to give you some tools that you can actually start to implement into your life. And yeah, let's get started. All right. So today we'll be starting talking about some health statistics, how we got to where we are today with nutrition, why what we're doing is not working. Then we're going to go through 5 different nutrition myths. After that, we're going to dive deep into what should we be eating instead. If this is what doesn't work, then what should we be eating instead, and start to give you some tools to work with. And then the next tool is how to make those changes. So sometimes we have all the information that we need, but it's just hard to actually implement and take action. So that's going to be our agenda for today. So before we move forward, we have a little disclaimer. Just know that all of the information today is informational. It's not used for replacing medical advice. So make sure that if you have anything medically going on, to consult with your doctor, and just take a moment to skim through the disclaimer to make sure that you can see what it says. I'll give you a second to look through that before we get started. All right. So how did we get to where we are today? Why are we so confused? So Here are a few health statistics. So right now in the U.S., even with all of the dieting information and all of the nutrition information that's out there, we still have 33% of adults in the U.S. who are obese. And that number is expected to continue to rise. 95% of those people who lose weight regain it within 5 years. There was a really interesting article about The Biggest Loser, the show The Biggest Loser, and they actually tracked the participants to see how many of them actually kept the weight off, what happened, and sadly to say, most of them gained the weight back and more because their metabolism had shifted so much during that intense time when they lost a significant amount of weight too quickly. And, part of the reason that is because the method that they use doesn't work for long term. So we're going to look into that a little bit more. So Americans spend about $60 billion per year on dieting. We're trying to find solutions. We're spending lots of money on various dieting techniques. And if we're going to look into why dieting doesn't work and what does instead. And then about 610,000 Americans die from heart disease each year, and more than 29 million people over the age of 20 have diabetes. So these are both very preventable through nutrition and lifestyle. There's all of the studies that show that these are preventable diseases, and we want to be able to give you the tools to start working for your own health and then also for your patients to get healthier. All right, so let's dive into the myths. What are some nutrition myths that you're confused about? So I'd love for you to type into the chat box. An example of a nutrition myth is that cholesterol-free foods are heart healthy. They're good for your heart, meaning eating all low cholesterol foods are good for your heart, or maybe looking at, an example of dark breads are more nutritious than white breads. Anything that's confusing about nutrition, any myths that you know about, please type in the chat box. All fats are created equal. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, that is an excellent myth. Anyone else have any myths that they're confused about or that they know? So the reason why we're talking about myths is because there's confusion. 1 week or 1 month they'll say, the information will be that butter is bad for you. And then the next month they'll say that it's okay and it's good for you. 1 month they'll say margarine's better for you. So making sure to, we're going to bust through some of these myths, and thank you for contributing. So let's get started. All right, and we have a great question that we'll be answering towards the end as we go through the presentation. So I'll be keeping track of questions, and we'll make sure to answer those as we go along. All right, so 5 myths we'll be talking about. The first myth is that all calories are created equal. And the truth is that this theory is too simple. Our body is so much more complex. As you see as nurses, that there's so much chemistry that goes on in the body, and it's really a complex, it's more like a science lab, our body, than it is a calculator. So the common theory or the common misunderstanding is that all we have to do if we want to lose weight and be healthy is eat less and exercise more. But that doesn't actually look at the quality of the calories. It just looks at the quantity. So an example of this is that if we were to eat a 1,200 calorie diet filled with fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, healthy proteins, or we were to eat a 1,200 calorie diet that was filled with chips and snacky foods and fast foods, that would give us a completely different outcome. So it's the same amount of calories, but the quality of the calories are very different. And the reason for that is because different nutrients and different foods send different messages to our cells, so and to our hormones as well. So a good example is if you had 100 calories of broccoli or 100 calories of Oreos, those would have 2 very different dynamic effects on our biochemistry. So when we eat the broccoli, it has lots of fiber, lots of nutrients in it. It also helps to It's anti-cancerous, has a cruciferous vegetable, lots of different great nutrient qualities. Now, when we eat the Oreos, they spike our blood sugar. There's some artificial ingredients in them. They've got processed carbohydrates. It's going to have a very different effect on our blood sugar and our cholesterol levels. So really important to not just look at the calories. I want you to start looking, when you look at a food product, I want you to start looking at the ingredient list. That's the first thing that you want to look at instead of just focusing on the calories. Now we want to start looking at the ingredients. So if a food product has more than 5 ingredients on the food label, or they are ingredients that you can't pronounce, then you want to start to pay attention to that and maybe start to find some upgrades, and we'll be giving you some examples of those in the next few presentations. The next thing that I really want to emphasize is that low calorie is not always best. So what can often happen is that when we eat too little and maybe we exercise too much, or we're just eating too little throughout the day, so you have a really busy day as a nurse, you're running around, you're working, you don't have that much time for yourself, you may skip a meal. What happens, or a few meals, and what happens when we go too low calorie, it actually causes a decrease in our metabolism. So our body goes into a stress mode, and it starts to store fat because it's stressed out. It doesn't have enough calories to support the energy that we're putting out, which puts it in a stress mode. So keep in mind, it's not all about the calories. It's important to take a look at the ingredient, the quality of the nutrients as well. All right, any questions about myth number 1, please enter in the chat box, and we're going to head over to number 2, and I'll make sure to answer any questions that you have. So this myth, eating fat makes you fat, is a very big myth. It's one common myth that's come up, common misunderstanding that's come up in nutrition over the years. Many magazines talk about this, and for a long time we were advised to go low fat because low fat is better for you and it will help you to lose fat. Well, the truth is that one of the biggest side effects for a deficiency in fat is difficulty losing weight. We really need these essential fats for our cells to function properly, and just because they have more calories doesn't mean that they're going to make you gain weight. So these healthy fats help to keep us full for longer. They help add flavor to our food. They actually help decrease LDL cholesterol, so your quote-unquote bad cholesterol. They help to increase your good cholesterol, HDL cholesterol. What I find when people go on a low-fat diet or are not incorporating enough fats into their diet, not only do they have symptoms like dry skin and brittle hair and their nails are brittle, but they're also finding that it's difficult to lose weight when they go too low fat. When we go low fat, it oftentimes causes us to eat higher sugar foods and creates more cravings. So that actually is not going to help with weight loss, and it's not going to help with your health either. So what are the healthy fats that I'm talking about? You can see on the presentation: avocado, olive oil, wild salmon, nuts and seeds, coconut oil, grass-fed butter. These are all nutrients or foods that have really essential healthy fatty acids, which are omega-3s and omega-6 fats. Like I mentioned, a diet that's too low in fat is going to increase carbohydrate cravings. Also, we oftentimes find that it, doesn't help with fat loss to go low fat. So keep that in mind. I actually recommend that you add a little bit of healthy fat to each meal. All right, so myth number 2. Here we go. All right, myth number 3. I see this a lot. When exercise, people think that exercise makes up for a junk food diet, or they use it as an excuse. So just because you're working out, that doesn't mean that you can eat whatever you want and stay healthy. Exercise doesn't make up for the food that you're putting in your body, and actually having a healthier diet can help you with having better results from your exercise and having improved health as well. So just keep in mind that your food is sending signals to your hormones. So what you do in the 23 hours outside of your workout has a dramatic effect on your body, not just the 1 hour of working out. Our food is also sending signals to our cells. It's telling us whether we should store fat, whether we should burn fat. And so even if you have the perfect exercise regimen, that doesn't mean that you're going to feel good. So I see a lot of people who exercise, but they don't eat well or don't eat healthy, and they end up having low energy and digestive issues and sleep issues. And so exercise isn't, the only answer, even though it's important. We really want to look at what we're doing in the 23 hours outside of exercise. So I've heard many personal trainers as well as doctors say that it is 70% to 80% diet is our health and weight loss, and 20 to 30% exercise. So, not to discount that exercise is not important. It definitely is important for heart health. It's important for blood sugar. But really keep in mind that we can't outsmart a bad diet by going to the gym or doing exercise. The other thing is that if you're going to the gym, but then you're eating a low nutrient diet or not a nutrient dense diet, is you're taking one step forward and two steps back. A lot of people will reward themselves. They'll go to the gym and they'll say, okay, now I deserve that cookie, or now I deserve that cupcake. What you're really doing is keeping yourself stuck, and all of that hard work in the gym is not really producing the results that you want, because you're taking two steps back when you start to compensate for that with your nutrition. So just keep in mind that we really need optimal fuel, healthy fuel for efficient fat burning, and that, exercise alone is not the answer for optimal health. And we really want to look at this as a comprehensive approach, both the nutrition and the exercise. You won't have to work as hard in the gym. You won't have to, spend as much time or work as hard in the gym when you start to make the nutrition changes in order to see the same results. All right, myth number 4 out of 5, all supplements are the same. I see this a lot. We see lots of supplements that, lots of people are taking supplements that they've heard on Dr. Oz or online or in magazines, and it's really, really important that you make sure that you're taking safe supplements. So I'd actually love if any of you are taking supplements, if you can write in the chat box maybe 1 or 2 types of supplements that you're taking. Anyone taking any supplements, multivitamins, fish oils, anything else? I see probiotics. Okay. So just keep in mind that the quality of supplements is very important. Some supplements can actually be more harmful than helpful. Okay, so I see B vitamin complex someone else is taking. Excellent. So not all supplements are good, and not all supplements are the same type of quality. So just know that some of these supplements are not regulated. It's not a very regulated industry. It's a marketing industry in many cases. So we have to be really careful of where are the raw materials coming from, what is the quality of the company that is making the supplements. So I don't recommend to buy supplements from really big box stores, things like Costco, CVS, Rite Aid, grocery stores. I really want to make sure that you're finding them from a really good quality source. So one of the things that you can look for is on the label, look at the other ingredients and start to see, are there any processed dyes? Are there any other oils, anything added that shouldn't be in there that's not healthy? You also want to take a look at the company. If it looks like it's a very marketing scam or looks very flashy colors and everything, a lot of times those big companies, protein companies, have a lot of binders and fillers in those ingredients, in those nutrients. Also, for an example of fish oil, the quality of where they're getting the nutrients. Some fish oil has mercury in it, or it doesn't have good quality raw ingredients. They're not getting that from a safe place. And so we really want to start to be careful about what we're taking. So what I see a lot of people taking, like a Centrum 1 a day, women's 1 a day, men's 1 a day, we really want to be careful. These are big marketing companies, and they're not really good quality ingredients. So some ingredients, some supplements are more harmful than helpful. Cheaper is not always better. That doesn't mean that you have to buy the most expensive products, but you want to look at what type of ingredients they're using and, just take a look. Just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that, it's a good option. Sometimes I'd rather people not take supplements if they're not taking good quality. And, one of the things that you can do, most health food stores have a screening process. So they're looking at the products, making sure that there's no toxins. You can't guarantee that, but looking at your local health food store and getting education about the supplements that you're taking is important. So I see another entry, in the chat, some people taking magnesium and calcium, all really great nutrients. And again, just looking at the quality of the nutrients. All right. The last myth, number 5, is that juice cleanses are healthy. So there's been a very big fad around juice cleanses. And I'm not saying that juices are, fresh pressed juices are unhealthy, but what I am saying is that there's a big misconception about juice cleansing. So the problem with juice cleanses is that there's no fiber, no protein, and no healthy fats. This can cause a really big issue for blood sugar balancing, as well as slowing down your metabolism. When you're not getting enough protein and not getting enough fiber, your blood sugar's all over the place, and you're actually breaking down muscle, and that's acidic in the body, and it actually slows down your metabolism. The other reason why juice cleanses are not healthy is because they don't actually help you to cleanse toxins out of the body. The reason why some people feel good on juice cleanses is because they're taking out a lot of processed ingredients that they're normally eating, and they're just eating fruits and vegetables, or at least the nutrients from them. But the point in cleansing is to actually get rid of toxins and release the toxins out through the liver and get the toxins filtered out. Now, juice cleansing doesn't do that. It doesn't have the amino acids to support the liver. It doesn't have any nutrients that help to rebuild the liver. And juice cleansing doesn't actually help to cleanse the body out as you might think it would. So the main concerns is for anyone who has blood sugar issues. I'm not saying not to drink juices, just to look at juices that have less sugar in them on a regular basis. So, juices that have carrots and beets tend to be much higher in sugar, so watch out for that. And then also you can incorporate green juices into your diet as long as you're still eating throughout the day. So not just doing juices throughout the whole day is what I'd like to kind of move towards. So that covers myth number 5. Before we dive into what to eat instead and what to focus on, I want to really get a sense for you, why should we be eating healthy? What is the point? Other than weight loss, and this is a great Q&A for you. I'd love for you to enter in the chat to participate. If you're on the call, make sure that you're participating so you get the most out of it. So other than weight loss, what are some benefits of healthy eating? What are some other reasons why we might want to eat healthy? To improve your energy levels. Awesome. Yeah, a lot of us are walking around with low energy, and when we don't have enough energy, then it's hard to show up in our job and to care for others. Okay, so improved mood, also excellent. Feeling better throughout the day, disease prevention, acne and hormones, definitely, to live longer. The interesting thing is that nowadays we have people who are living for longer, but the quality of their life in the last 10 years of their life is not so great because they have a lot of health issues. And I'm sure as you see as nurses that, most people are on multiple medications, and their health declines significantly as they age, and it doesn't have to be that way. So really looking at this nutrition and this lifestyle changes as a way to really, improve your health and the quality of your life, and it's not just about the weight loss. So some ways that nutrition can help your health, like some of you mentioned, energy levels. It can help with heart health. I've seen some of my clients I had a client, his cholesterol was at 320. Those of you in the medical field know that that's really high. Anything over 200 is considered high. And his cholesterol just from dietary changes alone went from 320 to 170. And he didn't have to take any medications for that. So it is possible to change your heart health, your cholesterol levels, your inflammation markers, a lot of the risk factors for heart disease by changing your nutrition. Blood sugar, pre-diabetes, so many people are walking around with diabetes and pre-diabetes and they don't even know it. And if we can catch it at an early stage at pre-diabetes, there's so much that we can do to prevent diabetes and blood sugar issues just with nutrition alone. Other ways that nutrition can help is to improve your sleep, improve your skin health, so acne, eczema, rosacea, skin rashes, improve your hormone balancing, irregular cycles. I'm sure you see a lot of people or know of people who are having trouble with fertility nowadays. Nutrition can really help with fertility as well. And then improve digestion. So lots of reasons why we want to start to look at what we're eating. And, again, not just for weight loss, but really to live a life where we can do the things that we like to do and take care of others and improve our health. So what should we eat instead? What are some of the common foods that we're told are healthy? So this is a quick Q&A as well. So what foods are should we be focusing on? What are the things that you think and that you've heard that we should be eating to stay healthy? If you can enter in the chat. Fruits and veggies, excellent. Fresh produce, things that are homemade, excellent. Yeah, so we've gotten into a routine for convenience, everything processed, everything packaged, convenience. And you can still have quick, convenient food that's healthy, but we want to start to gear towards more of these more nutrient-dense foods that have more nutrition for our cells, that are sending the right messages to our hormones. So, what we've been advised as a culture, one of the main areas where we get nutrition information from is through government guidelines. And one of the main things that we see is this pyramid. It's called the My Food Pyramid. And what this is advising us is to eat mostly grains, some vegetables, some fruit, and lots of dairy, and very small amount of protein, meats and beans. And there's a big issue with the message that this is sending. This food pyramid is sending a message that we need more grains. And as most of us know, that grain products like breads and pastas, tortillas, those types of things actually contribute to increased blood sugar issues, and we have a huge issue with diabetes in our country. So why are these recommendations made? The food pyramid is actually put together by politicians through the agriculture. We have a huge surplus of grains in this country, and they're trying to push us to eat more grains to help with more of a economic issue that we're having. So it's not created by dietitians or nutritionists. This isn't health advice that's coming to you from a genuine, authentic place that's scientific based. So the things that are wrong and the things that we want to look at is too much dairy. We're told that the only way to get calcium for osteoporosis to prevent bone density is through dairy, and that's not true. We can get calcium through beans, through green vegetables, through nuts and seeds, lots of amazing places that we can get from. And many people are sensitive to dairy, so that's one reason why we don't want to be eating too much dairy. And then the other thing is that most of the dairy in our country has lots of hormones and antibiotics added to it. So we don't want to be consuming increased amounts of dairy if it's not good quality. So if you are eating dairy, making sure that it's organic so that we can prevent added hormones, and then make sure to check in to see how that feels for you. How does your digestion feel when you're having that dairy? The other thing, like I mentioned, this food pyramid is showing us to eat a lot of grains. It's actually shown, especially processed grains, that those are not healthy for us. Things like processed cereals and tortillas and pastas, things like that, are not necessarily the most healthy for us. So when I think of whole grains, I actually think of the real grains. I don't just think of whole grain bread. I think of the real grains, things like brown rice and quinoa and oats. Those are have lots of great fiber and nutrients in them. So making sure that I'm going to show you kind of what to focus on and what to eat instead, but really looking at some of the guidelines that we've been given are very misleading, and we need to start to look at, what should we be eating instead. So the other issue with the food pyramid is it doesn't show us what not to eat. So it becomes, confusing. It's just focusing on what to eat, but it doesn't show us what foods are harmful for our health. So that's the next slide that we're going to go into, what we want to be focusing on, and we'll be going into a lot more detail. This is kind of just an introduction presentation. We have a lot more information on how you can actually make these changes, but essentially what we're gearing towards is eating less of the following foods. So eating less processed sugars, eating less breads and pastas, even if it's a brown bread or whole wheat bread. There's a lot of carbs and sugars, and it has an effect on our blood sugar. Junk foods, so chips and cookies and lots of packaged foods, they're very addicting for the body. Alcohol, drinking less alcohol, caffeine, processed meats, processed dairy, unhealthy fats. We're going to go into more detail on these, but we want to start focusing on eating less of these and focusing on eating more fresh, unpackaged, unprocessed, homemade, organic. Those are the types of terms that we're looking for. Things like vegetables. I like to focus on vegetables even more so than fruits. Most people don't eat a ton of vegetables, only eat vegetables at dinner time. Well, we want to incorporate vegetables at multiple times during the day, not just once a day, in order to get the recommended amount. Fruits, nuts and seeds, oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, high-quality animal products. This is what we want to start to move towards so that you can feel better, have more energy, balance your hormones, improve digestion, so many places for improvement here. So where do we go from here? How do we use this information? We're going to start with a few foundational nutrition guidelines. So now is part of the presentation where we get into what can we do about this? How can we improve our nutrition? What changes can we start to make? How can you apply this information to your life? So I want to explain a few simple guidelines so that we can really start to make some changes for you and help you to take action. So the first thing that I want to talk about is understanding your metabolism. This is a very highly talked about topic, boosting your metabolism, but we really want to understand how the metabolism works. So every day we have a metabolic rhythm, a metabolism rhythm that the body follows, that the hormones follow. And it's all based around our circadian rhythm, our sleeping and when we wake up, and our hormones. And so what I want you to know is that in the morning, you can kind of think of it as the rhythm, the way that the sun moves. So in the morning, our metabolism is rising. By the middle of the day, our metabolism is at its peak. It's at its highest point. And then towards the end of the day, our metabolism is trickling down. So what I see a lot of is people skipping breakfast and then maybe eating a little bit of it at lunch. And then by the time they get to dinner time later in the evening, they're overeating. They're eating most of their calories at night because they haven't eaten enough during the day. This is working directly against your metabolism. Another thing that I'll see, especially around the holiday times, people know that they're going to a potluck or to a birthday or to a party, and they won't eat during the day because they're saving their calories for later. What happens is that ends up backfiring. We end up eating more calories in the afternoon, in the evening, and not enough during the day, so we're working in the opposite of our metabolism. We're eating most of our calories when our metabolism is the slowest, which means that we're not going to burn through that effectively. So what I want you to start doing is start to move your caloric intake, move your food, make sure that you are eating enough for breakfast. And I know that as a nurse, you're rushing, your schedules are different every day. You might not have the same schedule every week. So we're going to start to work on that. But some of the things that we can do is prepare ahead of time. We can make a few things, hard-boiled eggs, egg and vegetable muffins. We can make some oatmeal, overnight oats. We can make a quick smoothie in the morning. Lots of different ways that we can get quick options in for breakfast. The other thing is making sure that you're not skipping lunch. So bringing a lunch with you or making sure that you have lunch options and taking time for yourself. You can't take care of other people when you don't take care of yourself. And if you do take care of other people when you're feeling depleted and low energy and not good, you're not going to be able to show up in your best way. You're not going to be able to give as much as you could if you were feeling good. So just keep that in mind. It's so important to nourish yourself throughout the day, eat more food. And eating more food doesn't mean that you're going to gain weight. It actually is going to help speed up your metabolism throughout the day. So eating breakfast within 1 hour of waking up has shown to boost your metabolism. I personally recommend to eat breakfast that has some protein in it. So instead of just having a muffin or a bagel or a piece of toast or even cereal or a piece of fruit or just yogurt, make sure that you have something that has some good protein in it. So like I mentioned before, eggs, a protein smoothie, maybe having some Greek yogurt if you tolerate dairy, so an organic Greek yogurt, a plain yogurt, making sure, or a cottage cheese if you tolerate dairy, lots of different options. So making sure that you're eating earlier during the day, making sure that you have a protein-based breakfast. The next tool is slowing down when you're eating. Most of us, food becomes another task on the to-do list. It becomes rushing through your meal. What happens when we eat quickly is the body is in a stress mode. We don't break down the foods as well. We store food as fat more easily. We don't digest food as well. And it doesn't give the body time to break down all of these nutrients and absorb the nutrients to give you the healthy body that you're looking for. So making sure to slow down with your food, that means taking a step away, taking some deep breaths before you eat, taking a step away from the computer, chewing your food when you're eating, giving yourself more than 3 minutes, maybe eating while you're sitting down instead of, driving or when you're doing other tasks, but really just slowing down. The other thing that will help you when you slow down with eating is it's going to help you to get more pleasure from food. You're going to get more satisfaction from food. So that means that you're not going to have those chips or crackers or cookies and have all these sugar cravings, because you're actually going to get more pleasure when you actually eat the food and you're going to feel full. When you eat quickly, your body doesn't have time to recognize that you're full. The last tip that I want to share is the 80-20 rule. A lot of diets are very restrictive. They make it all or nothing, 100% all the time. You have to be perfect. And what I found is that when people strive for perfection and they don't allow for, to have any desserts or any sweets or anything that they like to have, it backfires. We can't maintain that. That's not sustainable. So if you're eating healthy foods most of the time, and you are nourishing your body throughout the day, then 20% of the time it's okay if at a birthday party or a couple of times a week that you enjoy a meal that might not be quote-unquote healthy or perfect nutrition. And having this balance can actually help you to keep going with your goals instead of stopping every time you feel like you messed up your diet because you ate something that quote-unquote you shouldn't eat. Okay. So we have some questions coming in the chat box. We'll definitely answer them towards the end of the presentation. We're almost there. Thank you for entering your questions. All right, so we have one last section before we get to our Q&A, and this is how can we make these changes? How can we start to make these nutrition changes? So this is more of the mindset and the behavioral side of things, which is really important. We can't just look at the science of the nutrition, but we also want to look at the psychology behind making these changes. So the first step is that we need to give you the tools to be successful. So having the education, that's what these presentations are for. These are giving you some real solid scientific information, education. And in order to make a change, you don't want to do it just because someone says it's healthy or you should do it. Understanding why you're doing it or why it helps you can oftentimes be the make it or break it as to actually making those changes. So when you can relate to it more, when you understand why you're making the changes. So don't worry, you don't have to go out and take a nutrition, master's program or anything. Just show up to these presentations, take some notes, Other ways is to make sure that you're reading some great books. We'll be giving some book recommendations, listening to podcasts, but really making sure you're getting some good education to stay successful. And to stay inspired too, just learning more can help keep you motivated. The next point is to set specific goals. So a big goal of, I just want to lose some weight. Well, losing weight or weight loss, the studies show that goal is it's not a big enough goal to help you to make the food changes. So it's very vague. It's too big of a goal. It's not very specific. And so you want to be more specific. How much weight do you want to lose? When do you want to lose it by? What would be different in your life when you lost the weight? I actually find that weight loss itself is not enough of a driver for most people. So more specifically, I want more energy. I don't want to feel crappy during the day because my energy is so low. I want to improve my digestion. I don't want to have stomach aches all the time. I want to prevent heart disease. It runs in my family, and I don't want to have a heart attack or have heart disease. So having more heartfelt goals, having more goals that really, inspire you to make a change. Once you start eating healthier, the weight loss will come, but if you just focus on the weight loss, it's not enough to keep you on track most of the time. Okay, next, creating a system. Everyone's different. What works for you might not work for someone else and vice versa. So according to your schedule and your food preferences, really finding what works best for you. So for some people, it's meal planning. So taking some time on the weekend or your day off to plan for the week. For other people, it's ordering groceries online instead of going to the grocery store. Some people they don't have the time, or they don't like going to the grocery store, so using a system like Amazon Fresh or another website called Thrive Market. Those might be ways to help keep you on track. For some people, it's ordering a meal delivery service, something that is already prepared for you, but you just have to cook it, so everything's measured out and you just have to cook it. So one of my favorite meal delivery services, they're not cooked already, but they help with meal prepping and planning. It's called sunbasket.com. So take a look at Sunbasket. You can make those meals in 30 minutes. I know a lot of the other systems like Blue Apron and some of the other ones take a lot longer to make. So whatever system is going to work for you, something that you can repeat and that becomes second nature instead of trying different things all the time, just kind of getting in a rhythm and building momentum. Step number 4 is one change at a time. I can't tell you how many people come into my office and we do a consultation and they think that they need to change everything the next day right away. It's very difficult and very overwhelming to do that. And even if you are successful at changing everything at once, it's not going to be sustainable. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to maintain all of those changes. So I really recommend to pick one change. Maybe it's drinking more water or eating an extra serving of vegetables per day, or eating a healthier version of when you go to restaurants, making healthier choices at restaurants when you order, choosing healthier restaurants to go to. Just one change each week and getting consistent with that before you add on another change. So really important to take things slow. Don't rush into this. This is a lifelong journey. It's the marathon. It's not a sprint. And over time, you'll see that these changes are more sustainable. The last piece is building in accountability, making sure that you tell your friends what you're up to, tell your family, maybe having a friend or a family member do it with you, start to make changes, working with a coach, a nutritionist, a health coach, maybe joining a meetup group of people who like to cook, maybe taking a cooking class with your friends to build in accountability. For example, if you want to become a better hiker, you're probably going to want to surround yourself with people who hike, not people who have never gone on a hike before. And just know that you don't have to do this alone. If you find that you need more accountability and support, just think about it. Every single professional athlete, they're really good at what they do, but they still have a coach. They still have that mentorship and that motivation and that accountability. So if you don't have that built-in accountability, then start to create that. And if you need extra help, seek out help from a nutritionist or a coach. Humans aren't meant to make these changes alone. It's a lot more challenging to do it alone, and we have so many different distractions nowadays. So making sure to have some accountability and support, having someone to go to the gym with, or signing up for a class in advance, or having accountability by sharing recipes with friends, lots of different ways that you can build in accountability. All right. So my question for you, and I'd like for you as part of your accountability to enter in the chat box, is what's one change that you want to commit to for the next 21 days? So we talked about a lot of things, eating breakfast earlier, maybe meal prepping, drinking more water, taking more time for your health. What are some things, what's one thing that you want to commit to? I'd love for you to enter in the chat box something that you were inspired by today. Cooking more home-cooked meals. Okay. Eating less sugar. Awesome. So finding some healthier alternatives for sugar, some other sweet options. Okay. So eating breakfast, making sure that you prepare ahead of time so that you don't skip it. I know mornings can be a rush, so sometimes just having something prepared ahead of time is really helpful. Excellent. Okay, great. Some great changes. All right, so before we finish, I do want to go back and answer some questions. I had a great question about what types of nuts are best. So what I actually recommend is to get some variety. So, before we hop into questions, I have another a commitment, a goal for 21 days, improving eating habits and exercising. So that's a great goal. I want to get a little bit more specific with that. So maybe breaking that down a little bit more and, like I said, making one change at a time. So those are going to be a little bit too general, a little bit harder to. So maybe breaking that down to I'm going to exercise, committing to exercise 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Or I'm going to add more vegetables into my diet to help change your eating habits. So that's a great start, and just I would recommend to break that down a little bit more. I think you'll be more successful if you can have more of a specific thing that you can check off each day. Okay, so going back to the question about which nuts are healthier, which nuts are best. In nutrition, I think the thing that we get caught up with is eating the same things over and over again, or, because it's convenient or because we think one thing's healthier. Now, what I would recommend for nuts is that you eat raw nuts. So instead of roasted or salted, I recommend raw nuts. And I recommend to get variety. If you keep eating the same things over and over again, first, I think you're going to get bored and you're more likely to stray off and start eating other foods. And second is you might develop sensitivities depending on your gut health and what's going on with your health, eating the same foods over and over. So I do recommend to get variety. Almonds are nuts that have the most protein in them. So those are great. Walnuts are really great for brain health. They have great omega-3s in them. Cashews are also excellent. So lots of really excellent different choices. I do also encourage to increase your intake of seeds. So we focus a lot on nuts, but also seeds, things like hemp seeds or chia seeds or ground flax seeds. Those are all excellent. Pumpkin seeds, those are the little green, the inside of what you would see out of a pumpkin, but they're green and they have lots of zinc in them and lots of good nutrients in there too. So maybe adding some toasted pumpkin seeds to your salads, or adding those to your diet. So I hope that answered your question about which nuts are best. I think variety is important, and ideally looking for raw nuts and seeds is what we're going for. All right. Any other questions? I think I had another question. I'm going to scroll back up to see what I have here. Is fruit sugar okay? Yes. Fruit sugar is okay. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, eating more vegetables is what I like to focus on. So fruits are okay. I recommend, 1 to 2 servings of fruit a day, not much more than that. And I also recommend to eating the whole fruit instead of doing fruit juice. So having fruit a piece of fruit actually has fiber in it versus having orange juice or apple juice. Those have a lot more sugar in them. We wouldn't actually sit there and eat 6 or 7 oranges, but when we have orange juice, it's a combination. It's the juice from 6 or 7 oranges. So it ends up being much higher concentration and not as much fiber. So the sugar from fruit is great. I actually prefer fresh fruit instead of dried fruit. And I have another question about fruits. Which fruits would you recommend most? So I would recommend a variety again. It also depends on the person, what your goals are. So for someone who has high blood sugar, then we might want to be more cautious with the higher glycemic fruits. So those are things like bananas and melon, watermelon, papaya, mango, pineapple. The tropical fruits are the more high glycemic fruits. So if you have high blood sugar or if your goal is weight loss, you may want to consider eating more of the lower glycemic fruits, things like apples and berries and grapefruit. And then you have the in-between, the medium glycemic fruits, meaning that they, glycemic index is how much these fruits spike your blood sugar. So medium glycemic fruits are things like stone fruits. So peaches, plums, pears, those fruits are medium glycemic. So focusing on the lower glycemic fruits is what I'd recommend, the apples, the berries, the grapefruit. But that doesn't mean that you can't eat any of the other fruits. It's just about how often, so 1 to 2 times a day, and then also what your goals are and what's going on with your health. So keeping that in mind. So all fruits, have benefits. It's just about figuring out what's going to work best for you. Excellent. I have time for 1 or 2 more questions if anyone has more questions. I know we're going to cover a lot of this in the next few presentations as well, but I'd love to answer any questions that you have. All right, so we're going to wrap up for today. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find out more information, recipes, and nutrition tips on my website, which is nourishbalance.com. And you can also follow me for daily updates on Instagram and Facebook. Lots of health tips on there. And if you have any follow-up questions, please go ahead and email me. It's akrasner@ayahealthcare.com. So thank you so much for joining in. If you have other travel nurses that you think that work through AYA that you think would benefit from these presentations, please share the information with them and let them know that you thought that it was valuable, because we have some great feedback right now. We hear that it's very educational, very valuable information, and please don't hesitate. We would love your feedback. So if you have anything that you think would help to improve the presentations, please email us and we'd be happy to make adjustments accordingly. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We're happy that you're here.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, everyone, for joining. So, again, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to join our wellness program, and be sure to check out the schedule for upcoming presentations with Amy as well as Shannon that work in your schedule. And if you haven't already, please do feel free to join our wellness community on Facebook. So thank you again, and we will see you guys next time.